Have you ever looked at Pete Davidson and wonder to yourself, how in the world does this guy land so many pretty women and get them to date him? I'm Dr. Dan, and I'm going to break down the science behind why Pete Davidson gets all these women. So you may be asking why I would cover a guy like this as a neurostrategist, a coach, and a communication consultant, and that is because I, just like you, am probably intrigued at how does he get all these women. But the cool part is when you start to understand this, you can adopt the very things that he does, even though he's a comedian and a celebrity. So I'll be honest, when I started looking at this, I knew he dated Kim Kardashian, but the list goes on. So he's not just been this one-hit wonder that struck with this one gal. It's been girl after girl after girl after girl, which simply begs the question, what is he doing? And are there things that he's doing we can do as lay people to get better results and influence the people we're trying to reach? So for me, I like to study the brain. How does he influence this limbic center of the brain, which is where all decisions are made, with these women to become irresistible? Now, if you read the rumors, some would tell us that there's one advantage he has related to his anatomy, and we're not going to talk about that. He has to get them before they figure that out. You ever thought about that? He has to be able to attract them first. And so some of you in your own business, in your own strategies, you need to think about that. How are you attractive enough so people want to pay attention to you? And then you have a hook to get them in and a conversion process to make them want to do business with you, to buy from you. It's the same strategies. That's why I love science, because it's reproducible. When you understand the simple science of how the brain makes decisions, you can influence it with your communication, no matter if you're funny like Pete or you look like Brad Pitt. So the first thing with Pete is he is clearly a funny guy. And the thing about humor that is important to know, it breaks down barriers that nothing else can break down. If you've ever been in a sermon and somebody's talking about a serious topic and then they drop a joke or some sort of self-deprecating humor, it goes a long way. It makes you believe them more. It makes them look like a real human. It humanizes the message. And with Pete, he can do this like very few of us can, because he's essentially paid to be a comedian. There's something unique about the way Pete is funny. Articles point out that he is a very humble spirit. He's not this egomaniac, look at me and do what I say. It makes these women bonded to him unlike any other. And so what humor does is it lowers stress hormones like cortisol, and it increases these good hormones like epinephrine and endorphins. This helps a woman feel joy, feel happiness, feel good around him. So he's got this concoction of humor and humility that goes further than your average comedian. The second thing about Pete is that he is himself. He is okay in his own skin. Some of you need to get this point across in your own messaging because you feel like you got to be somebody versus be yourself. People want to read you. I say this all the time. If you're marketing to the right people, you want to attract a certain population, but you also want to repel the right people. Pete repels the right people. There are more women that probably don't like him than do like him, but the reality is he's not going after all women. He's got a unique sense of humor, personality, and style that attracts the people that he needs to attract. For him, they just so happen to be well-known, pretty, and a lot of them can either sing, act, or do something famous. What's also interesting about Pete is he's very vulnerable. He shares his struggles with mental health and depression and how he lost his dad on 9/11 when he was only 7 years old. And so he's carried a lot of that with him, but he's also taking care of his mom. He's bought her a house, he lives in the basement. It just goes, this storyline is created. He's humble, he's himself. He's willing to put himself out there. There was one article that showed that he's a pizza and movie type of guy. He doesn't need to go out and be in front of everybody. He's okay with being him. And if you've ever seen me speak, I talk about this over and over again, this powerful hormone called oxytocin. It's the breastfeeding hormone. It is the ultimate human-to-human bonding hormone. When you share vulnerabilities, when you're okay with being who you are and you're humble and you're not trying to hide stuff, people are bonded to you at a different level. Where most comedians and famous people, they are trying to be arrogant, they are guarded, and they are trying to make you feel like they've got no flaws. That is not the ticket to influence, because this oxytocin hormone increases when there's a level of connectivity. And that's what you want in your messaging. You need to be able to connect with another human. And nothing does that more than sharing your doubts, sharing your flaws, being humble and open to your audience. And the third thing that Pete does so well to be more likable is that he pays attention to details. Kim Kardashian reported that she became aware of this when he delivered a tub of her favorite candy on a long flight that she was taking to the Dominican Republic. And so that tells a lot of things. One, he was attention to the details of what candy she likes, and then he purposely went out of his way to make sure that those were delivered to her at a time when she could use them most. That is paying attention to details. It's those little things that go a long way. And I'm sure there's 1,000 more of those that he is responsible for because he pays attention to details. You can be more likable by adopting the things that he does. And that's the cool part to communication. When you understand some of these rules of the brain and how it makes decisions, whether you're male or female, big, tall, short, skinny, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. The brain makes decisions a very specific way. And when you understand that and you communicate utilizing these principles and these strategies, it's as if you're playing by a different set of rules. He's funny, he's himself and very vulnerable, and he cares for these women. He pays attention to details. So you may ask, Dr. Dan, what is one way that I can show I care for people? And I'll say, that's an easy one. Here's my question for you. Are you the one asking questions? When you're in the presence of somebody else, the way you express that you care, the way you show them you care, is you're the one asking the questions. But you can't just ask a question. You have to be genuinely curious for the answer. You've been around people who just asked a question and then they're waiting for you to stop replying until they can start talking again. It's as if they just checked it off the list. But if you ask a question to somebody and you genuinely are curious about the answer, it takes on a whole new meaning. David Augsburger said this: feeling heard is as close to feeling loved that most humans can't tell the difference. What does that mean? That when you ask a question and you really want to hear the answer, they feel like you love them. They feel like you care about them. And so this is so critical. When I teach clients this, it can take them from 0 to hero like that because their audience or their prospects feel that they care. And caring is a feeling. Liking is a feeling. It's not just something you intellectually think about, it's something you feel. So it can't just be articulated. You can't just tell somebody you like them. It's got to be a feeling. And so there's no better way to demonstrate that by asking questions and be genuinely curious about the answer. Do you know the most important organ to listen to somebody? Must be the ears. It's the only way we listen. You'd be wrong. Is that 55% of all communication is body language. So the most important organ to listen to somebody is your eyes. Are you making eye contact? When you ask somebody a question, are you genuinely curious about the response at eye contact? See, Pete Davidson does a good job of this because he's genuinely curious. He shows he cares by being attentive to details. And I've never listened to one of his conversations with the women that he's attracting, but I can guarantee you that he cares about them by asking questions and not just talking all about himself. So what's the takeaway here? Are we to be more like Pete Davidson? Kind of. I'm just saying adopt some of the strategies that he's known for that has helped him be so likable and so attractive to so many females. I bet you never heard a video that would say, be more like Pete Davidson, but there is huge value to be more likable in your marketplace, and Pete Davidson has laid some groundwork for us to learn from. There you have it. Leave me a comment. Do you agree or disagree that Pete Davidson is a likable guy? And feel free, disagree with me, debate me. Just remember, smell my name right. Dr. Dan, I'm out.